You're listening to AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. Welcome back to episode 5 of AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. I'm your host, Richard. This is my co-host, Matt. Welcome back.
Episode 5, my favorite number. Let's go. I'm excited.
Yes.
Let's do this.
We have some pretty fun topics here this week. Let's just say, first of all, is the Suns are on fire. Quite literally, the fan base went from being terrified to being not so terrified. So we are going to be talking about that this week. We're going to be talking about a little bit of Dbacks news. They have started getting the ball rolling after a sluggish start. Definitely playing a lot better as of recent. We have the draft for the NFL. 4 days away. So we'll be talking a little bit about the needs that the Cardinals are needing right now. No IFL news. We do have a little bit of IFL news. No Rattlers news. We do have a little bit of news on the other two teams here in Arizona, which is Northern Arizona and Tucson. They got to play this week. We have... Last thing up on the docket was the Coyotes, and we got a couple of short little quick news on there. We are also going to go over a little bit of the blunders that John Chaika made in drafting in his tenure as the general manager. And all that is going to be coming at you nice and quick. But first, let's talk a little bit about some personal news. I know we can't go a week without Matt paying for another jersey. So, come on, let's see it. What'd you buy this week?
Just to plug it real quick, I wasted like $500 in the last 4 days. So please look at my most recent jersey haul video. I could use some people stroking my ego a little bit. Just kidding. Anyway, so I was at the Coyotes game. They had plenty of half price authentic Adidas Howling jerseys. I already have 2 myself, so I didn't need any more. But I saw this. I fell in love. And I'll explain it real quick, but it might look to you like a regular Kachino, like that nice little one you're wearing there, but it's actually a CCM throwback. It was just before everything switched over to Adidas and when Fanatics took over, and it was back when the third jerseys looked a lot nicer. They cost more, but they looked a lot nicer, and you could tell it's different because the Phoenix Coyotes patch, and I do not mean to sound hyperbolic, I'll say it in the jersey haul video. It almost looks disgusting without the Arizona or the Phoenix. It looks incomplete, and I get it, the simplicity, it is what it is. But how the collar is just
right here,
thinner on the Adidas and everything. I miss this. I know you had a bit of an issue with just how thick the original collars were. I think this is probably a happy medium for that. But just the beautifully stitched logo. I feel like even the lines and everything are just a little bit better on this, a little higher quality. I needed it. I wasted $190. I know it's not a waste, all right, because I enjoy it, but like,
don't worry. When the team moves, all this is going to go up in value. It's just like the Thrashers.
I can't get a Thrashers jersey to save my life. I have a practice one. And one of those giveaway Zach Bogosian jerseys because that's all I could afford. I really want the powder blue ones. That's the Bogosian one, but I want a real one. But it's like $300. It's like trying to find an authentic Adidas reverse retro. One day I'll suck it up. One day I will have FU money, and I will definitely buy that. Today's not the day. Tomorrow's not the day. Next week's not the day.
Yep.
Oh man. Anyway, I saw that. I fell in love. I also got a Shane Doan retirement puck, a pin, this bobblehead, and as I was taking it out of the box, it immediately fell through the plastic case. His leg broke off. I glued his leg to my finger, and after 20 minutes of fiddling with that, I fixed it. It's good as new, as long as you're 10 feet away or more. It's fine. Just squint your eyes a little bit.
I mean, from here it looks pretty good, but I'm like 40 miles away, so.
It's fine. It's great. Pay no attention to the weak leg right here that looks like it has a bunch of it's super glue, but it has a bunch of white stuff on it. It's weird.
weak leg. Are you sure that's not an Ekman Larson bobblehead?
OEL, Jacob Chikrin, Auntie Ranta. All right, so real quick, IFL news. IFL, just to give the Northern Arizona Wranglers and the Tucson Sugar Skulls a little bit of love. If you're curious, the Wranglers are my second team because I like Northern Arizona more than I like Tucson, and their logo is kind of cool. It was a high-scoring affair in a game that I didn't expect these teams to have a high-scoring affair out of them. 72-62, the Tucson Sugar Skulls win. Unfortunately, there was no fans in attendance to see because the Boneyard was exactly that, a boneyard. I think on the footage I saw, there was maybe 100 people. Tucson is very much drying up as an indoor football market. I think it's because the Sugar Skulls sucked last year. Dbacks. They, after losing in embarrassing fashion against the Nationals, so they had back-to-back games. They were double headers. One they lost 6-1. One 1-0. I think they only generated 2 or 3 base hits in that one. They bounced back the very next day, 11-2. Seth Beer would not be denied. He had like 3 hits and 3 RBI. He played very well, and then Arizona splits that series, winning 4-3 on April 21st. They come back home. They immediately lose to the Mets in a very competitive 6-5 loss yesterday. And this play actually made top 10 on SportsCenter. I was surprised by this. So they win 5-2, but on the very final play, Alcantara over on the third baseline, he dives for the ball and just beams it over to Christian Walker for the final out in a 5-2 victory. If you just look at their last 4 games, they have won. I don't know why I got lost in my own head for a second. They've won 3 of 4. They are very quickly turning this season around. They might be better than we expected, and even if they just end up kind of capping out just below that extra wild card spot that's coming in this year, that is a lot better than we were expecting. And one nice statistic, pitching wise, is that Merrill Kelly, he is second in the MLB in terms of ERA with a .59. And then Madison Bumgarner is 8th with a 1.38. Among the MLB starters, the Dbacks are 3rd in the MLB with a collective 2.45 ERA. This is been a stretch that is just wow. The pitching was always good this year. The pitching was always good. I think Davies had a pretty solid outing the other night. I think, Tyler Gilbert came in with a pretty solid effort. I think it was a loss, but he still had a pretty solid effort. I think that was the 1-0 loss, actually, where they had no run support, but still, they're turning it around, they're turning a corner quickly, and this is more what I was expecting last year of them being a team that's good. I don't know why they fell off so much last year. It's irrelevant at this point, but just, I'm enjoying seeing this. I wish I'd had more time to watch more of the games, but good on you. And the bullpen has been carrying them a good amount. It's been one of the strengths, much better than last year. The bats are finally starting to heat up a little bit. That was a big problem for the first week or so. Right now is becoming a better time to watch Diamondbacks baseball, and that makes me happy because I love the D-backs, and I love watching baseball passed out on a Sunday recliner with a drink next to me and a notepad in the other hand.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because holy crap, these past couple of seasons have been a grinder. Except for that sweet, what was it, a walk-off home run to lose the first overall pick? Was that it?
Okay, so they 2 games left last year. All they had to do was lose one. They get the first overall pick, and they get Elijah Green, and they won both of them, those bastards. And then, at the very least, Seth Beer in the 9th inning with that walk-off home run. The first player in MLB history with a walk-off home run while trailing on opening day to win the game. I know, very specific statistic, but guess what? We're forever in the history books. You know who else was in the history books this year? The Phoenix Suns, who... I'm going to call you all out right now, and I really hope this becomes one of the segments that Richard posts later. Y'all that doubted this team, they lost 1 game. They did not shoot well. They did not play well. And the Pelicans had to shoot near historic levels to do what they did. And y'all are like, oh, I am still a little concerned for the second round moving forward with Booker's injury, and that was always my main focus. But this team, the culture, the leadership, how well they've played, D-Book still is with them. He's not going to just sit around while they're losing basketball games and just be fine with that. CP3 is not going to just be cool with losing. DA, they fed that beast for 28 points, 17 boards. He had, I think, 13 points in the first quarter alone, 21 points in the first half, a career high for him in the playoffs. DA was hungry, and they were feeding that man. CP3 took over again in the fourth quarter. Even though McCollum hits a three-pointer with the buzzer beater, they still win 114-111. And I don't care how close the game was. This team was shorthanded. They were shooting, I think, 17% from three or something like that. If they were just shooting their regular average, that's like a 25-point blowout. They were dominating in the paint for the first three quarters. I think it's 54-26. Oh, yeah, no, top of my head on all this. All right, I actually got some of this memorized now. And the fact that some of y'all doubted this team so much, it was borderline CP3 and DA slander. All right, it was borderline slander. Like, I get being concerned, but the hyperbolic fake Suns fan energy out there that they lose D-Book, I said it before, I will reiterate it one more time. They are not a championship team without Book. But they are not a first-round exit without Book. That is ridiculous. That disrespects what they've done this season. That disrespects the culture. It disrespects what they've managed to accomplish. They end up getting that win. It's a 2-1 series lead. While series are tied 1-1 going into Game 3 in the NBA, 73% of the time the team who wins Game 3 wins the series. And they have the chance tonight, I think it starts at 7 or so, might be a little bit earlier because it's a Sunday, have the chance to put a stranglehold on the Pelicans. The fact that y'all were freaking out so much and now within one game, we're right back on being confident again.
Yep.
If you're off the bandwagon, get off. You do not deserve. You know what? I'm sweating with two jerseys. I'm wearing my D-Book Phoenix Suns little Ross knockoff jersey just so I can show some support while I'm sweating in this office. Get off the pot. If you had serious first round doubts, like, oh, they're going to lose this series now. Not, oh, it's going to be more competitive because that is a loss. If that's where you're at, that's logical. But if you legit thought they were just going to crumble, get off. Get out. Log off. Go away. We don't need you here because that was slander. That was literal, actual slander. That's all I got. I needed to get that one out.
Good? You feel good?
You know what? I yelled about John Chaika. I yelled about fake. I think I'm actually solid to just go hang out in the living room, grab a little Kool-Aid
this is your
jam, and
zen.
chill.
Your yin and yang have worked themselves out. You're hitting your zen right now.
It's the knuckle up moment, boys. We're fine now. We're good.
I completely agree with you. Like, if you haven't been watching the season, like, that's how they've always been. They've been next man up. Like, let's get this done. And they're showing it now. Game 3 was a perfect example of that. It's just next man up. Don't throw a hissy fit just because somebody's out. Go and play your game. Be better.
I would like a little more out of Cam Johnson, Cam Payne. I would like a little more out of these guys. Crowder is still scoreless from 3 so far. Yeah, I could agree with you on all those. Those are very valid criticisms and things that do need to get adjusted. They have time to make those adjustments. They are not done yet. The series is not over. Calm yourselves.
Yeah, and luckily, like you said, Book isn't like... It's not like he's out of the playoffs. Like, it's just I think it's a sprain, an ankle sprain, maybe?
It's a grade 1 hamstring strain. And
strain, yeah.
The Suns have not confirmed a timeline. They said it's not appropriate to have a timeline right now. But it is typically between 2 and 3 weeks. That does not mean Book won't heal more quickly. It does not even mean he won't even be out a month. Things can vary, but I do not see him being out the full 3 weeks. And even if so, the Suns team is more than equipped to make it to the first round in 5 or 6 games. Give Book a couple of days off, and the second round opponent, to my knowledge, should be either Utah or Dallas. And I can tell you right now, unless Utah gets their stuff together, Dallas is primarily just Luka. I know they have other players. I don't care. It's primarily the Luka show. And then when you look at Utah and how kind of dysfunctional they are and how they blow leads constantly, I think the series is tied because they blew a lead, like a 27-point lead yesterday. I was watching some of it when I was at Buffalo Wild Wings. Not sponsored, just context for where I was.
Not a sponsor, but can be.
Can be if you give me some free wings or free chicken tenders, because the chicken tenders weren't bad. Anyway, but I have faith that the Suns could easily go through those teams with Book barely playing. Because I think they are deep enough, but they do need to make those adjustments. They do have to improve on what they're doing, because right now the bench is not being their best asset like they were in the regular season. But it's not over. They're not done. The season is not over. They're not just going to crumble. And the amount of people that legitimately thought this team would just crumble, y'all are fake, and y'all did not watch when we were still starting like Marquise Chris and Josh Jett. You were not there for those days. If you want to talk about Suns teams you cannot have confidence in, I went to games back because they sucked. It was easier to get tickets. It was cheaper. I don't go now because I'm poor and I'd rather buy jerseys and comic books, but I still watch the game. I still keep up. But yeah, you weren't there for those days. You weren't there for them blowing up their 3-point guard system because Goran Dragic lost faith in the franchise and Eric Bledsoe famously did not want to be here. You weren't there for that, all right? And you're acting like this is hardship. It's not. Shut up. I'm also a Coyotes fan, so I'm biased.
I was gonna say, going into hardship here, let's talk a little bit about Cardinals and their hardship, and how we are not going to talk about the whole quarterback situation, but we'll talk about some other needs for the Cardinals with the draft coming up here in 4 days. What are the greatest hardships that you think that they need to cover at the draft?
Well, I think they picked 20-something. I think it's 26. You can correct me if it's on your screen. But they lost Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones, even though it wasn't his best season last year, he had a phenomenal week 1, but everything else kind of evened out. But you still feel that man's presence. You're going to need another edge rusher, but you're not going to find another Chandler Jones. So you're going to have to find the best player you can. They definitely need a wide receiver. They are thin at wide receiver right now. The legend that was Andy Isabella will no longer be with us, so we can't rely upon him bailing us out every week. I know Cardinals fans love him when we dog on Andy Isabella a little bit, but you could use a solid young receiver. Get me like a 6'5", 6'6" kid that can run, and we need more of that, more depth at that position, because the quarterback had less weapons down the stretch. Even though the quarterback still had enough weapons, there was less weapons. I'll give you that. You could always use offensive line depth. I don't know where you would pick that, maybe 2nd or 3rd round, but you can always use that depth there. Corner is another spot. They can use another guy or two. They have plenty of needs, which is kind of terrifying because they have almost no cap space, and they've just kind of lost a lot of players this offseason. So I'm going to welcome our basement overlords next year, and it's going to be fun to see Cardinals fans coming off the high that was 10-2 and coming into
2-10,
3-14.
2-10. Yeah, it's I think they are officially projected to be out of the playoffs by the sports bettors. I think, don't quote me on that. I believe they are. Yeah, they are not looking good in the early projections from all the assets that they lost in the offseason. And the assets that have still yet to sign in the offseason.
Anyway, I think that's a good spot to leave off at. The Arizona Rattlers' next game is on the 30th. Please make sure to watch that. And I will never be sponsored by them, but I will sure shill for them. Please send me my AZ Sports Guy jersey. That was not cheap, and that was like 3 weeks ago. At least give me an update! Anyway, make sure to watch them. The Suns are on tonight, Game 4. I definitely expect them to win by at least 10 or so points. I want to see DA get fed again, and I think probably this is a game you're going to start seeing that 3-point shooting go up a little bit, maybe around 22%. Not as great as you would like, but that still should be a decent little improvement. The Coyotes coming up on their last game at GRA, I think, next week or the week the following week?
Yes, and something like that. I'll be there.
That's going to be a thing. That's going to be such a different thing, man.
I will be rooting for Glendale's demise.
And maybe, you know what? To celebrate it, maybe like if you show up a little bit early, I'll show up in my cowboy hat, my Wranglers, and we'll just have a little yeehaw rodeo out there to celebrate the new rodeo capital
of
Arizona.
You're asking a lot from me here.
Anyway,
yeah, maybe.
We got some stuff coming up for the next week. The Dbacks should still be rolling, and episode 5 is down. I know we technically lied to you. This is pretty much a Coyotes podcast featuring Arizona sports, but
yeah, I'd definitely say this week it definitely was. Don't worry, the off season for the Coyotes is coming up real quick. We'll be real dry on some content for the Coyotes, so it'll shift focus to. I'm assuming it's going to be the Suns deeper in the playoffs, and then all we'll have is Dbacks.
Rattlers.
Oh, Rattlers too, yes.
You know what? One day I'm just going to pick a random... we're going to be light on topics. You're not going to see it coming, and I'm just going to go over the history of the ECHL Phoenix Roadrunners just to shoehorn hockey into it.
As long as you read it to me like a children's book.
All right, so here was their captain from this year to this year, and they had
a
magical
stormy
run
night
where they sucked and no one cared about them. And a young AZ sports guy's dad promised to take him to a game after young AZ sports guy was watching 3TV and saw a little segment on the Phoenix Roadrunners, and then 15 years later, that cynical fat AZ sports guy bought a lot of jerseys of the Phoenix Roadrunners to make up for the lost childhood he once had. Close the chapter. My last game at GRA, man, it's so hard to explain that I didn't know how to feel. And then they played No More Sorrow. I think it's a Linkin Park song, but that was the opening video song for 07-08, my first full season there. And yep. I just it wasn't a panic attack. Like I please don't take this as the hyperbolic stuff, but it was. I did not know how to take that information. I didn't know how to accept all of this, and I still don't think it's fully sank in that I'm not going to see another Coyotes game at Jobbing.com, Gila River Arena, Glendale Arena for you real retro folks.
Yep.
But it's...
Yep.
I know you got season tickets. You're going to the last two, but man, I grew up in that arena. My dad worked there. I was there almost every day. Days they weren't there. Days they were there. I had Christmas parties where I got to hang out with the players. I'll have to do an entire video just with memories I have there. But it's
the highs and the lows, right?
I remember
how incredible that 2012 run was, and being privileged enough to be able to be there while they were doing that run was just incredible. It's crazy because as of recent, the Coyotes have not been very good, and you can tell when they're not very good that the barn is quiet. It's just get this over with. Let's get out of here. We're here to support the team, but we're only here just because we have to support the team. Whereas when they were successful and they were in those playoff runs, it was another feeling. It was a whole different feeling. The electricity in the air was just incredible. And
were you there for 2010 too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to segue into this real quick. I want to know your perspective on this because the bankruptcy we don't know what's going to go on. They might relocate for the 18th time because they're always in a relocation rumor. But then do you remember that video when it was against the Red Wings? They were starting it out, and everyone, it's a whiteout. My first time seeing a whiteout, and that was, I still can't describe that with words. It was so phenomenal, but it shows the headlines from the bankruptcy to it looming over the team, and then the song "Alley in the Jungle" starts kicking in, and it's everybody gets knocked down. How quick are you gonna get up? And everyone shaking the free pom poms along to the beat. I still can't find those, by the way. I will pay someone $30 for one of those. I will waste money. That's nostalgia anyway. But just
I have someone somewhere in my dad's house. I have one of those. I made the mistake. So they also handed out in 2010. They handed out long sleeve whiteout shirts. They was all long sleeve. And I made the mistake of throwing them away as a kid. I wore it for 4 years, and I nonstop wore that shirt because I was so happy. and it just like eventually tore apart. And I was just like, all right, I can't keep this anymore, and I got rid of it. Dumb me, I could have just cut it and turned it into like a sleeveless or something, you know. But I was young, I didn't know how valuable that would have been.
Basically, current 45-year-old Richard would have never done that. But
yeah.
But it's just I got bullied. This is not a woe is me, but I got bullied for liking the Coyotes, and just, you know, even if it wasn't direct, it was just the amount of other fans you'd see just trashing on the team constantly, and just that moment, that just summarizing the struggles to the highs of finally making the playoffs, breaking that playoff list drought, seeing the passion, feeling that energy. I cried. I think about it and still get teary-eyed, because it's literally this thing that I love more than words can describe. The only thing I'm more obsessed with is Sonic the freaking Hedgehog. And it's just getting to feel that, getting to see people loving this thing that I love. How can you describe that? I don't have the words. I'm not intelligent enough. I can't. I'm sorry. It's just...
You know, the best way I can explain it is, not to go crazy, but like growing up, I grew up religious. And, you know, when you go in and you go to church, like, just seeing a community coming together and being very electric, it's similar. Like, sports is similar, and I'm not going to push anything. Like, it's very similar in the way of that, like, sports is religion in a sense. Like, it's crazy how, like, close you become with other people just because of a crappy hockey team, you know. Like, it really does, you know, it really does have that sense of community, which is interesting, because you'd think, like, why am I swearing, you know, allegiance to a team? You know, that seems dumb, but, you know, hey, we got to have a sense of community from something, and, you know, sports is a great way to do that.
And just, especially when you go from the laughingstock, no one cares, the apathy. At the time, the Suns were still good. The Dbacks were actually still pretty good. The Cardinals just coming off a Super Bowl run a couple years before. And the fact that the Coyotes, like, when they would win, the other teams wouldn't play, or they would lose, and the Coyotes would still get just a little blurb in the side of, like, Arizona Republic. Going from that to just that, it's so hard to put into words, but it meant so much to...
Yeah.
I just to have people love the thing that you love, and have people just support it and show passion. I want more of that, because if people say hockey doesn't belong in the desert, Coyotes don't have fans, you can bleep this out. Fuck you, because I've seen it. I was in that building. I was there. I 3 years in a row, I was there. There is proof of that happening, and no. And even in the old America West Arena days, no, you cannot say there are not hockey fans here.
It was a weird feeling. So. We had season tickets through that, and in 2010, when they were facing bankruptcy and they were very close to being moved to Portland, people don't realize this. Steve Peters, who was the video coach for 20 plus years for the Coyotes, has come out recently and told people, like, yeah, we were like told to start looking for houses in Portland. That's how close they were to moving the team to Portland, Oregon. And, you know, I remember that season. Like, I remember starting that season, and, like, you know, the Florida Panthers, when they were bad, like, get harped pretty hard of, like, is there even 4,000 people at that arena? Like, it's dead. Yeah, that was the Coyotes at the beginning of 2010. It was a weird feeling going to a game and being from like 2008, 2009 area, and it was about what it's now, where it's like about 10, 11,000 people show up, to that beginning of that 2010 season, like, there was nobody there. It was eerie. Like, it was like maybe 2,000 people, if that. And that was a really weird feeling. And then as the season progressed, more and more people showed up, and it was like, yeah, we don't have ownership. The NHL now owns us, but F you, we're going to do this anyways.
And just like to add on real quick, I apologize for cutting you off. it early on, it felt like just the people that loved the team and just wanted. Pretty much the mindset was almost, if this team moves, I want to be here for the last year. If this team, like, the people that were there were the diehards, and then, of course, the visiting fans that liked cheap tickets, but that was the atmosphere. It was, if this team's going down, we're going down with them. Like, remember across the street, was it the New York or whatever that restaurant was, where they had to Save the Coyotes rally? Like, it was just the people that were like, we're going to appreciate every second of this, just in case.
Yep. And also the other crazy thing was in 2010, if you purchased like more than like $30 at like a Fry's, which is like a food store here in Arizona, you got free tickets to the Coyotes. Like, that's how much they were handing out tickets. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. Like, it's funny, like you hear so many people nowadays like, oh, the Coyotes, like, they're not selling, and oh, it's a disaster. Like, just move them. I'm like, you didn't see 2010. Like, there's still the Coyotes, even being one of the worst teams in the league, are still selling more tickets than two other teams. Like, that's impressive. Like, it could be much, much worse, and it's not.
That's one of the reasons why we've never turned a profit. Obviously, the numbers are not accurately reported, or at least not readily available for the 90s. When they were first here, they were really successful. I have a hard time believing they never approached profitability, but growing pains, you're essentially a brand new enterprise, whatever. It's common to lose money. But in 2010, people were coming whenever they were getting good and they were starting to fire up and they were going for that playoff run. But when you had 20 or so games, maybe even more, maybe bordering on 30, it just kind of depends on when the message really sank in that this team was going to go to the playoffs. You had people that, well, if this team's not going to be here, why do I care? Because all the headlines, it's almost, not quite, almost like it, like people are trying to push right now, oh, they're going to move anyway, who cares? And they keep trying to like push that, but that's what it was back in 2010, because people are like, well, if they're going to leave anyway, why would I spend my money? And sure, I can respect the mindset of not wanting to waste money. It's kind of one of the things I like about the market. Give us something to cheer for, and we'll show up, we'll spend our money. But at the same time, when they were trying to find a reason to stay here, and the other people keep saying it's always Bettman. No, it's the owners, because the owners know. At the time, we were the fourth biggest. Now we're the fifth biggest. Houston has just overtaken us. When you are that big of a metropolitan area, it doesn't matter if you're a non-conventional hockey market or basketball, whatever. If you can tap in, there's still money to be made. That's why they didn't want to leave Atlanta. The only reason they did is because they did not have a building or an owner. Like, we at least had the building. We didn't have the owner. We had the building. That's why we're still here, because it was pretty much between Atlanta and Arizona. One of them was going to go at that point because they couldn't deal with both of them.
That was a great point. I love that Canadians will absolutely call Gary Bettman a mouthpiece for the owners. They literally say this verbatim. Gary Bettman is a mouthpiece for the owners, and then also proceed to say how it's Gary Bettman who wants to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. It's like, let's run the hamsters in our brains real quick here. Let's do some hard maths. If Gary Bettman, okay, is a mouthpiece for the owners, okay, why are the Coyotes not moving because of Gary Bettman? Well, let's follow the chain. Oh, it's the owners. Wow, holy crap.
It's like, oh, well, they would sell out every game in Quebec. Sure, yeah, they would. I've never once said Quebec does not have a great hockey market and fan base. Here's the problem. The Canadian dollar, it doesn't matter about even the inflation now. The U.S. dollar is always going to be stronger than the Canadian dollar. I don't know why that is. If you know exactly why, you can put it in the comments. I know you do. Go ahead.
I got it. Okay, let's run down the pipeline here. What is the most profitable thing in Canada? Well, it's not really technology. It's not really the military-industrial complex. Not really car manufacturing. It's not really batteries. Oh, it's oil. Wow. Okay, so oil is what keeps the Canadian dollar afloat. What are we getting rid of in the next 20 years?
Or at least trying to.
At least trying to.
Where you're at.
Let me say, I understand, for people who aren't really interested in electric right now, but we're pushing away from oil. what do you think is going to happen to the Canadian dollar? Right? When we look at the United States, the reason why the United States dollar stays the way it is because we have tech, we have car manufacturing, we have regular manufacturing, we have, as much as everything that's going on right now, military manufacturing is a big one for us. Ask anybody who it works around with Lockheed Martin or what's the other one? Northrop Grumman. Like, these are big companies that make a lot of money for the United States. And yeah, that's why the dollar stays the way it is, because economics, man, how does it work? You got a lot more flow right there.
And even then, like that because again, I'm just gonna go ahead and be the dumb person, because for whatever reason, the U.S. dollar is always stronger. That's why these owners want to stay in American markets. Why do you think even Canadian teams get paid in American dollars? Contracts are out in American dollars. Okay, if the Houston arena was a realistic possibility back when the Jets were trying to become a thing, I guarantee there's like a 90% chance that Atlanta could have relocated to Houston instead of Winnipeg. They only went there because they had no other options. It's not that there isn't a market there. It's not that there isn't it's not that they wouldn't make money. It's the U.S. dollar is more stable. It always pretty much has been. That's why these owners want to stay in American markets, and they're always looking at American markets. I don't get why people still think Quebec is actually viable, because they'd rather make more. Because if you saw it with 2010, 2011, and 2012, when the team's good, people will show up. Bad management means you're going to lose money. If you have an actual good owner, good management, good arena, all this stuff, and a good team, the profits will come, and these owners know that. That's why they're willing to take these losses, because I will give this to you right now. Every Canadian fan that's ever said this, you are right. We haven't turned a profit. You are right. Revenue sharing is keeping us afloat. You are right. A lot of the Canadian markets, especially because you have Toronto, Montreal, these massive markets, like unrealistically massive markets, that's why they're going to always be there, are helping keep us afloat. But because the owners see the potential here, they don't want to let go unless they absolutely have to. Because if the team moves, there will never be a reason to make another hockey arena. Therefore, there would never be a reason to come back. They know if they move, they will not come back into the Arizona market. They wanted to get Atlanta back so bad they put the Thrashers there. They know at this point they can never go back to Atlanta. There is no viable way to go back. And they did not want that to happen. If it was up to them, we'd have 40 teams, and Atlanta would be among them. Quebec would probably be among them because just another additional hockey market. Houston, maybe Kansas City. If it was up to them 100% and the talent pool wouldn't be diluted, we'd have a 40-team league.
Well, here's another great one. We're just going straight into Coyotes news, apparently, because we're back in the rabbit hole, baby. I'm like a drug addict. I can't resist. I'm going back.
Can't stop, won't stop, boys.
But I find it so fascinating how I'm just going to keep pounding on the anti-Canada train here. Hey, remember, my predictions were that 2 Canadian teams were going to make it. We're going to bring the cup back to you, Canada. Okay, so there's some love there, all right?
You guys can cry in all your money. We're going to give you some trash from our poverty franchise.
Yeah, I respect you guys for what you do for the NHL, but stop dumping on my team, okay? I'm clapping back here. Okay, we see so many Canadians talk about, oh, look, hockey's getting outpaced. Oh, it's all Bettman's fault. Okay, what do you think will push hockey? Moving it towards markets that are new and don't have hockey in them, or just keeping the hockey in the markets that are already well funded, right? What do you think's better for the league? Really think about this. When baseball took their sport to Japan, do you go, wow, that was a terrible idea? Why would they do that? Nobody in Japan wants to watch baseball. Now look at all the Japanese players who are coming into the league because they push the sport to other markets that don't have it. The Sun Belt has obviously historically not had hockey because it's hard to produce ice in, the desert. Nowadays, we have modern technology that allows us to do this. Dubai has a freaking indoor skiing resort, okay? So I think the technology's far enough there, right? And we're seeing more and more Arizona-based kids coming into the NHL because of what the NHL has done. By pushing the sport outwards, we produce more casual fans, we produce more diehard fans, we produce more players. Just moving the team to Quebec, do you think that you're going to gain more people watching the sport in Quebec? Do you think that...
Hey, Richard,
oh, yeah.
Toronto's best player and their best prospect are Arizona kids.
Yep. Tage Thompson.
Sorry, I had to throw that. I apologize. I had to because it's funny.
Yep. Tage Thompson from Buffalo is one of their better centermen from Arizona.
Glendale kid.
Yep. Like, there's a reason they're in Arizona. There's so much here. There's so many diehard fans. The community is getting large. A great example of this is Lindsay Frye, who's a now commentator, a color commentator, or maybe like an intermission commentator. I don't know her role. I like her, but I just don't know exactly what her role is. It's kind of one of those like in-betweener roles. And she talked about it herself. She is a silver medalist for the women's hockey side of things. She talked about when she grew up, she had to play with boys growing up because there were no girls here. Now our girls, there's a guy named Matt Schott who unfortunately passed away from cancer. We lost him a year or two ago, and he pushed the girls' game so far here. It went from like 10 girls to like almost 1,000, I think, or something like that, playing the sport here. And he also was able to get those junior levels to Division I, meaning that the girls no longer have to leave Arizona to pursue a better career. They can continue to pursue it here and get the ability to play for maybe a college team if they're good enough. That's like really, really incredible. That's development. That's what the NHL has been trying to do this whole time. And when you don't push hockey, in a developing city, you're only going to fail as a sport. Like it's you have to keep bringing in new blood. It's like the lifeline of your of your business, not your organization. It's like the lifeline of your business. And it's just, it's dumbfounding to me that one hand, it's all Bettman's fault. On the other hand, he didn't do enough. Bird was upset at me. The other hand, it's, he's not doing enough. It's like, what do you want him to do? Just move every team to Canada? Like, what is it? Like 80% of Canadians like watch hockey? Do you think you're going to just reel in that other 20% and that'll get your team to the MLB numbers of money? No,
pretty much.
It's not.
You take it into context, Canada's tapped out. Like,
yeah.
They're a massive market, but you're not going to expand there. Why do you think the LA Kings, especially getting Wayne Gretzky, was so huge for the game? Coyotes, being here, and just people are like, oh, was Austin Matthews really worth all this lost money? It isn't just Austin Matthews. First off, fun fact, he wasn't born here, but he did do the junior Roadrunner stuff here. David Spina, legend, a legend that never actually made it to the NHL. You had Austin Matthews, Tage Thompson, Matthew Tkachuk was born here. Now you could argue because Keith Tkachuk was an NHLer no matter what. He could have been Canadian or we'd say St. Louis like his brother. They both grew up in St. Louis, but still you wouldn't have Matthew Tkachuk. He was born here like that. Tage Thompson, Matt Nees, Joshua Doan. All right, the royal bloodline still being here. The Joshua Doan. Also, he's a all rookie finalist this year. He had a very, very good season. He also secured a massive NIL deal. ASU football is not securing massive NIL deals, but Joshua Doan got a massive NIL deal. Look, you cannot tell me it's not developing. You cannot tell me all these players and what they're accomplishing. Even if every single one of them, and let's just pretend Austin Matthews also flopped just for a second, you cannot tell me the amount, just a pure number coming through that are quality prospects, even if they all flamed out, isn't worth hockey developing here because you're getting quality talent no matter what. And all I'm going to say is I don't get the only thing I can think of is because this market's doing so well in all those little aspects, it's almost jealousy, I would have to say, mainly because I'm a cheeky asshole. You can also leave that out if you want, but also because it's just kind of funny to think of Canadians being jealous of our poverty franchise. Anyway, we have gone way, way overboard. I'm going to steer us back real quick. Let's talk about Boko Amama. All right, you can say his name properly. I'm terrible at this, so I'm just going to stick with Boko.
I'm not going to pretend like I knew how to say this. I looked up how to pronounce it because I wanted to give him the respect of learning how to say at least his first name. I know last name's kind of weird. We just say Amama. I think it's Imama. There's certain pronunciations that make it just a little bit different. But his first name is Bokonji. Bokonji. I believe that's how you say it. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but I wanted to learn how to say it fully. But yes, very special. He has been an AHL grinder. He has grinded through the AHL. I think he's played 4 seasons there, and he finally got the privilege to get his first NHL game.
And it's just the fact that I like Braden Burke. All right, actually, sorry for my comments. I was like, hey, how's Braden Burke doing like 2 or 3 years ago? He's not a bad player. The problem is he was injury prone. I think they moved someone else along with him, but Braden Burke was like the main piece there. They acquired Boko Amama. I'm going into this thing. You know what? You look at him. He's a grinder. Definitely going to add some sandpaper. Should make Tucson tougher to play against. Didn't think much else of it. If you're looking at someone to replace like a Christian Fischer to have an extra grinder that might add some depth scoring, Ben McCartney's played well this year. But then Boko Amama down there, he starts scoring some goals. And his first game, actually, I remember you were saying it, that his parents, because it's such a late call-up, didn't actually get to go to that. They actually ended up benefiting, all right? They actually ended up benefiting from this because they made it last night to his second career NHL game, and he already scored in just 2 games. And considering how hard he's working out, it's kind of under the radar. I'm almost convinced at this point that it's kind of, you're going to sneak him into your bottom 6 with an extra grinder that can tap out at about 10 goals a year, especially if he keeps working and everything translates over, because so far he's looking pretty good. It's only a couple games in, though. But, I have to acknowledge that. You can have him tap out at about 10 or so goals. You have Lawson Krause filling a similar role in your top 6 with about 20 goals. I think they're positioning themselves well enough to have decent young power forwards that are not going to be under these big Albatross Lucic type contracts. That's going to give the team an identity. It's going to give them that grit while also giving some depth scoring. They might end up being significantly better quicker than we're expecting. Now, I'm not going to say playoffs next year confirmed, but with how these kids are developing, with the system they're going for, it depends on what they do in the offseason and just the influx of young talent they're going to bring. I think Tucson probably should be a playoff team next year, depending on how they draft, depending on if those kids are going to be old enough to play in the AHL. I think it's 19 or 20. It's an extra year or so before you can go to the AHL, but they should be significantly better.
If you're in the European leagues, you can immediately jump in at 18, I believe. But if it's anything from like the Canadian junior leagues, they'll probably be a couple years, like you're saying, 19, 20.
Is it like, so you're already kind of semi-professional, so that's why you can kind of jump right into the AHL versus the juniors, you stay there for an extra year or so, then you come over?
So yes and no. So the big reason is because there's an agreement between the NHL and the Canadian junior leagues, because the problem is that if you draft a player, you would just put him in the AHL. Then he can be a call-up whenever. Like, it's easy that way, but the problem is that the Canadian Junior League would be cannibalized if you were to do that, and so they have an agreement to not do that because it would be really bad for the Canadian Junior League if you just, we drafted him at 18, all right, put him in the AHL, like, and you did that with 100 players, let's say. I don't know how many Canadian junior players get drafted at a year, but let's say 80 of them do that. Like, that's a disaster for the league, like for that Canadian Junior League. So they have an agreement that you can't do that. If you're going to take a player from the Canadian Junior League, he has to play in the NHL. He cannot be taken to the AHL for a few seasons. It's 2 or 1 or 2 seasons. I don't remember the exact number. I know a lot of people are trying to push for special status on certain players, I think that would be kind of an interesting idea. So let's say here's our blue chip prospect, like a Barrett Hayden, right? Mm-hmm. You draft him 5th overall. What's better for his development? Putting him back in the Canadian Junior League so he can just stomp all over the kids, or putting him in the AHL where he can have better competition? You get one player on your team that has a special, like, exemplary status where he can hop right into the AHL. But unfortunately, that is not the case.
I mean, I think it would be an interesting idea. For example, it was like 1 first-round pick per season is eligible for it, but then you can't do it more than 2 years in a row. So that way it's not completely cannibalized. I think if you're going to do it, I would do it like that. But just kind of steer back to where we were. I think this is going to be really interesting to watch. And I'm predicting Dylan Guenther makes the actual NHL next year. I think he's been too good. I don't know if AHL is going to offer him anything that the NHL couldn't offer him in terms of development. And I think, like I said, this team is going to look pretty damn good. Also, I would love to see Guenther playing with Michelli instead of Keller, because I love that already locked up Schmaltz, Boyd, Keller line.
Yeah.
I'm excited going into next year, and just, you know what doesn't make me excited? You know what just does not make me happy?
What's
Bad
that?
Draft picks. All right? We had some good trades. We had good little additions. Jack McBain has 1 assist in 7 games so far. I think he's actually played rather solidly. I think Nathan Smith is a lot more NHL ready. Out of the 2, he has 2 goals and 1 assist, 3 points in those same 7 games. So those young kids, got by a trade, pretty solid players. I think next year is going to be exciting. I would love to see them get extensions sooner rather than later. So just so that way you avoid, potentially losing them out for nothing or having to force a trade at the deadline. But that's just because I'm a doomsday prepper. That's just because I would rather err on the side of caution. I know you compared Nathan Smith's game to Brian Little, which is ironic because we did get Brian Little as well.
Let me clarify. It was Matt McConnell on the broadcast. He's the play-by-play broadcaster for the Coyotes. He made that comparison, and I completely agree with it.
So we're hitting on those so far. I think those are like I liked him when we got him. I think from what we're seeing so far, like I said, McBain's a little more two-way, and Smith is a little more slightly undersized power forward type, I guess would be the best way I can describe it. I know you compared. Yeah. You had an interesting comparison yourself.
Yeah. So my comparison is that he's not as big and physical as Nathan McKinnon, but you can tell, like, when he's on the ice, he has that angry FU energy where he just wants the puck, and you can see he's like a driver. It was very obvious last game, Saturday, versus the St. Louis Blues. Like, you could just tell he was playing with that anger. Like, he was going to will his way to getting a goal. And I really like that about his game. He's still very undersized. He got actually beat up in that third period quite a bit by the Blues. He got hit with a flying hip check. Didn't get knocked over, but is enough to, ouch, hit a wall pretty much. And there's a couple other Blues players that were giving them some shots afterwards, because I think they could tell too that he was playing with that angry I'm going to go score a goal energy, and they wanted to shut that down immediately.
I loved him in front of the net. Like I said, actually I agree with you, and I said it before. Slightly undersized, but he's still playing that power forward type. He's getting in front of the goal. I almost thought, just when you see it just briefly, that it was going to get waved off for some reason, but he ended up just kind of tipping it in. I like that energy. I think I think that was a really good one, and we can have all the optimism there. And McBain and Smith keep playing that well. You're going to be added to my jersey collection. You had Amama, Smith, Carcone, a surprise out of the AHL last year. Tucson's done that phenomenally, where they've had guys just blow up. Connor Garland, Lane Peterson didn't translate, but he also, Michael Bunting, a Calder candidate this year, even though people are arguing it. I really don't care. You can do whatever you want. Michael Carcone, and then of course Yanis Moser. He stole a top 4 job. You cannot tell me he didn't. He phenomenal this year.
Well. He's played really well.
Very, very defensively responsible. He's made like 10 mistakes that I've seen, if that. He's added more depth scoring than I ever thought he would. He's a rookie. He's
picked him up as an overager.
He was an overager. And Kyle Pereira, when he said he was the most NHL ready of those, he was dead on. And I'm thankful for knowing people like that can give me good information because, man, this new generation of Coyotes are going to be good. This new generation is going to be good, and it just makes me excited no matter what for next year. What doesn't make me excited is the 2018 and 2019 draft.
Hold on, wait. I'm gonna put my hands up. Interject.
All right.
Interject.
What's up? What you got?
I had a really cool story from the game last night. So a year ago, Bokonji was on the LA's farm team, Ontario Reign. Yep. He got in a fight with Jan Yannick, who was on the Tucson Roadrunners last year. He knocked out Jan Yannick. It was a KO. It was a bad one. He got him. They both fought, knocked out. Next year, GMBA brings in Bokonji to play in Tucson. They work out their differences. Hey, no hard feelings. It's hockey. People get past fights and stuff like that. They're on the same team now. They're on the same line in the NHL together. Jan Yannick's wearing a bubble dome because he broke his nose in a fight in Tucson. And they're on the same line together. And when Bokonji scores that goal, who's digging the puck out for him other than Jan Yannick? The first one, they were sworn enemies last year, and he's digging out his first puck for the NHL.
Can I also just interject real quick? How good was Jan Yannick in that first period?
He looked really good.
The control he had. I don't know if he becomes full-time NHLer, but he might steal a bottom six spot. He's really smart with the puck. I like how he moves it. I like how he tries to generate shots. Keep developing that. All right, I like focusing on that because he's done some good things.
He also had, before they made that comeback last night, he had a shift in the third period where he was throwing his body around the whole time. So the fans were actually stood up and started cheering for him because they weren't big push you over hits, but there were 3 hits where it was a puck carrier, he ran up and shoved them into the boards. It went to another puck carrier, he ran up and shoved them into the boards. It went to another puck carrier and he ran up and shoved them into the boards. And the fans were getting back into it. They were down and out. It was 4-1. And that small little energy is kind of what started the whole thing. It was just that little shift where he just gave 3 really good shoves into the boards, and the fans started good, good effort. And even he was skating back towards the bench, and I think it was who's the one big one? I think it was Parayko who slashed him on his way by stop it. And it's one of those things where it's that's what starts the energy.
It's people forget how important two-way is. It's not just about the goals. It's not just about the assists. It's energy lines, energy shifts, energy plays, and he's good. He's a good young kid, very good two-way. Like I said, people undervalue that, and I think it's really good value. But like I was saying, back to the stuff that makes me angry. So the draft blunders.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let's start with 2018 because I know this was a little bit unrealistic. I wanted them to trade up for Brady Tkachuk. That was never going to happen. Chaika did not like Tkachuk's game for whatever reason. But what was one nice young player that you wanted out of that draft that I liked this little pick? Just go ahead and just give it to the people.
You wouldn't happen to be talking about one Quintinius Hughes, would you?
I think I would. I think I would be talking about same amount of points as the first overall pick, Rasmus Dahlin, 160.
Yep. In less games as well.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. Yep. The Coyotes always have a draft party whenever the draft is going on. Ask anybody there who was saying Quintinius Hughes. That would be me. I was pounding that drum that Quentin Hughes was going to be a star in this league. I said it. I will pound that drum. This is not a Captain Hindsight moment. I knew that kid was going to be electric. And I am a little sad that we did not pick him up. I knew that it was going to be Tkachuk if we had the option. Well, actually, now that you tell me that Chaika didn't like him, maybe it wasn't. But in my mind, if Tkachuk was there, we were picking Tkachuk. If Tkachuk's not there, it's Hughes. I said that, and I was like, this is my guy. And all of a sudden, Barrett Hayden, who is projected at like 15, gets picked at 5. And I was like, who the heck is this guy?
And look, I know you agree with this too, at least a good majority of it. He's developed a very good two-way game. He's definitely the kind of guy, he can be a top 9 anchor. He's at third line center, mostly defensively responsible. He's done like Clayton Keller, except for I think he's a little better than Keller at this. He's putting a lot of work at that. He's also a pretty good setup guy. He can finish. He does have some deeks and dangles, but it's sporadic. You're going to get it every now and again. I would say he maxes out at 15 goals a year. And that's a max. That's a scoring third line, like you were saying, depending on the combination. But just... I will always defend Dylan Strome. He couldn't control where he got picked, and he's also been consistently a top 6 productive, good player. All right? Barrett Hayden had through 91 games in 3 seasons has 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 points. I think this is his career high with like 9 goals this year. That that's not 5th overall. And just to go ahead and just briefly look at the next couple of picks, Zadina, Quintinius Hughes, Adam Boquist, not a bad player at all. Another couple picks down at 10, Evan Bouchard, very solid young player right now, and you keep looking down. I wouldn't have minded them trading down with like 18 where Columbus picked and getting Liam Foudy. I don't think that's a bad young prospect. Obviously, Barrett Hayden's had more games, more production, but when you look at, I'm looking at these lists, looking at these names, and I'm just like, the problem with John Chaika is he made trades that looked decent on paper, and his drafting was terrible in the first round because he would get tunnel vision. He liked Barrett Hayden. We're going to talk very briefly in a minute about Soderstrom, but it's double that. It's just he sees something he likes, and he will trade up or he will reach to get that. And the problem is, if Barrett Hayden was a 15th pick, if Barrett Hayden was a 23rd pick, if Barrett Hayden was a 33rd, early second round, nobody would care. People would be like, you know what, that's a solid projection, third line anchor, good, solid young player, not great, but good. You're Ryan Dzingel type. But 5th overall, with Hughes being someone that was kind of can't miss to a context back then. You still have Bouchard, Boquist, Zadina. You had too much there, in my opinion, to whiff as bad as they did.
Yeah,
and I don't even hate Hayden's. I'm sorry. I don't even hate Barrett. It's just we could have had Quinn Hughes.
Yep. So I will say this: Barrett Hayden has had some bad string of injuries. That is one thing that has affected his game. We will acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. I will also acknowledge that his first year back from after being drafted, he went to the Sioux. He looked pretty good. He also led Team Canada to a gold on a torn rotator cuff, some shoulder injury. I'll say that.
Yeah, it was an injury,
he scores a goal as the captain to win against Russia for the gold medal. So there is some pedigree there. The problem is that when you see him translating his game into the NHL, I don't see it yet. Maybe it'll click. Sometimes it happens. But to me, at best, he looks like a third-line center. He looks like a very good third-line center, but he looks like a third-line center. And that is not what you're using your 5th overall pick for.
And even at the AHL level, he hasn't been that good. Last year, 26 games, 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points. This year, only 4 games, 1 assist. I'm not going to put any stock into that. That would be unfair. But I got to go to some of those Tucson games, and he just didn't look that good. Or watch him, excuse me. I think I went to one that he was playing this year. But still, it sucks. It's unfortunate. It's one of those things where I don't want this to be misconstrued as hate towards Hayden himself. I like the player. I just wish if they were going to get him, if they were just dead set on Barrett Hayden, they would have traded back, got an extra asset. Think about it like this. Depending on who you trade with, you could have got Hayden and Foudy. Hayden and maybe you could have got like Ryan Mercury. Hayden and I'm kind of looking down a little bit further, just trying to find something decent. You could have maybe got Lindblom. You could have got Wu. There's a couple of decent, Jack Drury. I like Jack Drury. He isn't an NHLer yet. Probably doesn't end up breaking out, but you could have. There's a couple of young players, good names, decent guys that you could have had in addition if you really wanted to trade back and get Hayden. It just depending on the trade you make. And I'm like, I don't see, and even the next 10 slots after he was picked, anyone taking him. I just don't. I know centers get overvalued. I know they jump up a lot. I just don't see it.
So interestingly enough, the report was that the Coyotes had to pick him there. They were thinking about falling back, but the problem is that apparently, this is the report, we don't know, it's unconfirmed, that Chicago was going to take Barrett Hayden at 8.
At 8?
Yep.
And they ended up taking...
But once again, who cares? You pick best player available, and the best player available was Quentin Hughes. Let's not kid ourselves.
I think GMs overthink it too much because,
I
don't want to miss out on this prospect, but yeah, we needed a center. Yeah, in theory, the pick is good if Hayden translates the way you wanted him to. But the problem is you took a risk with someone that was projected lower because the 8th overall wanted him when... I'm just going to say it, and again, it's not a knock against Hayden as a person. I think Zadina and Hughes are both better players. I think either of them would have been a better pick at 5, especially Hughes, and I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I think what I'm going to start doing is when the draft parties come around, I'm going to be on my phone, I'm going to be at the draft party, and before the pick comes out, I'm going to say who my projected pick was and see if I can do better than some of these general managers. I have more faith in Bill Armstrong now, but why? You know, a great thing that you were talking about was once Chaika gets enamored with a player, he honed in on them. Now, we'll make an exception. In 2017, he had a great draft, but this is a perfect example of it. He picks with his 7th, he picks Clayton Keller.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Pretty good. Okay. He's at 18 or 19. I don't remember. He trades up to 14 or 13, somewhere in there. He trades up a little bit, takes on Pavel Datsyuk's contract for 2 years at $7.25 million, something like that. Don't quote me. And by taking on that dead contract, he moves up a couple of spots. Who's he pick? Jakob Chychrun.
Oh, you mean the captain? The captain himself?
The captain himself. And once again, to go back to the honing in on players thing, and once he gets enamored, that would be Jakob Chychrun. And remember, Jakob Chychrun wasn't just like he was an all-star coming out of it. He played at 18. This was actually Tippett, I believe, who started him at 18, if my memory serves me. And he slowly progressed into the role that he is now. But he, to finish up, like, I'm sorry, I'm losing train of thought here on how to tie this up in a little bow. Once he gets enamored, he gets enamored. We saw this with Jakob Chychrun, and we now have seen this with Victor Soderstrom. And so far, Victor Soderstrom is looking like a little bit of a reach.
All right, I'll take over real quick because this.
Yep.
You can ask Richard.
Tag out.
So tag out. What you got?
Tag me out.
Because you can ask Richard. He's a very honest man. He hasn't lied to me, at least to my knowledge so far. I said I would scream in this podcast when I double checked over this. I was mad when I saw. So when this happened, allegedly, and the thing is, I hate this like mindset. It's like this like two-way to think about it, where I give my opinion on something, and it's just my opinion, and I'm like, this is why. I'll explain my reasoning. Armchair GMs don't know what they're talking about. Yet whenever this happened, Philadelphia was going to take him. They had to move up to get Victor Soderstrom. All right, Victor Soderstrom, who's played 2 seasons, 17 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. He has not been the offensive player that they've needed him to be. He has not developed into what you need him to be yet. He's a very good two-way, primarily defensive defenseman. I think he's made some pretty good strides there. But you did not move up and waste the extra asset to go up. Well, I think they were at who did they trade with? They traded, I think they were at like 17 or 18 when they made that trade, were they? But they only went up like a few spots. And they
So I think the trade was that we traded with Philadelphia.
at number
and
14.
we moved up to take Soderstrom from Minnesota. I believe that's what it was.
Well, everyone was telling me it was Philadelphia, which I was like, sure. Whatever.
I think we made the trade with Philadelphia.
Well, if we were 14 overall, because I remember being mad we only moved up 2 or 3 spots, so that makes sense. But at the same time, Philadelphia saw it as we get an extra asset as well, because they traded a second-round pick. I said it should have been a third-round pick, because that second-round pick either ended up becoming this nobody, Bobby Brink, or ended up getting traded off for another asset later. But anyway, so you wasted the second-round pick to move up like 3 spots. And here's everyone that went in the next, 6 spots. So, Matt Boldy, Spencer Knight, Cam York, Cole effing Caulfield, the guy we were trying to trade instead of Connor Timmons, the guy we were trying to acquire, Alex Newhook, and Peyton Krebs.
Oof. I got you there. Got your back. Hype man here. Scream for me. Scream. Fetal position.
Okay, so I made a video. It's my most viewed video, just shy of 6K views, about me being mad how the Coyotes could have had Cole Caulfield. Imagine for a second, Keller, Caulfield, or Caulfield on the left, you can have him on the right, doesn't matter, with Connor Garland, especially since Connor Garland wanted to be more of a playmaker. You could have put Schmaltzy with him. If they ended up reacquiring Galley, I don't remember which year they had Galley. It was 18-19, so it would have been a little like the year after I think they traded away Galley. But you could have kept Galley and had Galley be the center. Could have had Dvorak be the center. Imagine the production. Oh, it could have taken an extra year, sure, but at the same time, if you would have had the right coach, I love Andre Tournier. I think Andre Tournier should have been the coach for the last couple of years. I don't care what anyone has to say, but you could have had that line. And again, looking at the rest of these players, they tried to trade for Newhook. Multiple reports, they tried to trade for Newhook. Peyton Krebs, a very solid forward, very solid player. Cam York, right now, has more games, more experience, and more points than Soderstrom. See, he has 10 points. That's 8 more than Soderstrom right now. And he's also more so playing in the NHL than Victor is. Spencer Knight is part of the reason I would be okay with trading Chychrun, because the the reported deal would have been a first, Spencer Knight, and Anton Lundell. And if you're trading me that, all right, I'm not thinking twice. You can have whoever you want on this team that isn't named Clayton Keller. Sorry. Anyway, so Matt Boldy, another guy, Minnesota will never trade him unless he demands something like he's not working out, he's whatever. The amount of raw talent that was just after Soderstrom. And I remember so many Coyotes fans just tearing into me when I was like, I don't get that pick. It's a reach. It was a waste of an asset. I hated throwing away a second-round pick to move up 3 spots. Oh, did you think they were just going to move up for free? You add 2 thirds. Thirds are, well, you're going to have higher available talent at second. Why wouldn't you just package the 2 thirds if you really wanted to move up that bad? Stop wasting second-round picks, and then you also get an asset that, while he is still a good defensive player and right-handed shot defenseman, will always have more value than a left-handed shot defenseman. I don't fully know why, but I know it also comes with pairing, being able to have that guy on the right side that has the proper hand to fish it around. There's a couple of more technical reasons for it, but
supply and demand.
Exactly, supply and demand. Great, I love that interjection, but they could have had an elite young player. And anyone that was paying attention even said Soderstrom's a reach. Everyone that knows hockey said it was a reach. I said it was stupid to waste the asset for the guy. Who cares if he wouldn't have been there? Let's say they still pick 14. Let's just say that Soderstrom still goes 11 and he goes to Philadelphia. All right, so Arizona missed out on Boldy and Knight, sure. You still could have had Newhook, Krebs, or Caulfield. That is one of the reasons why, this team will never win the cup with those certain regimes, those certain stupid mindsets. One of the reasons I don't like Marullo is because he idolized John Chaika. And Chaika made some very good trades. Most of those trades, though, looked better at the time than they did a year or so later, which is a huge problem. And he did make very good value, like 3rd, 4th round picks. I give him all the credit there. But we could have had an elite young player. We could have had Gold Caulfield. I'm having an aneurysm, I feel like, right now. I take it away. I'm just going to keep screaming at this point.
All right. To go back to assets that were mismanaged, I want to take a look at the Taylor Hall deal, just real quick. Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious, I'm trying to find this quickly as possible. So we traded away a few assets, right? And this is the one that hurts the most. Okay? I understand going for it, but this is I just want to point something out. This is why you never hand away magic beans. This is why you don't hand away your picks, because this one hurts. You ready for this?
All right, give it to me. I'm down to yell.
Okay. So we trade away for Taylor Hall, who honestly plagued the team. Ask any Coyotes fan. The Coyotes went from a hard-working team to, we don't need to score anymore. Taylor Hall will score for us.
I disagree,
Seriously,
but I'm also the minority. I am the only person that liked Taylor Hall. Ask anyone
I
else that
agree.
hated him.
Well, no. I agree. I liked Taylor Hall, but the problem was that the second we traded for him, the rest of the team stopped trying because they're like, we're fine. When you're doing homework, right, and like one quarter you got like an A because you did all your homework, and you're like, next quarter I'll do a little bit less homework because I'll skip a couple of days, and then you show up and you get a D, and you're like, oh crap, that's what happened. The team went from a hardworking A to I'll skip a couple homework assignments because I'm at an A. I don't care. I'll be fine.
I think you have a good point there, except for one thing. I genuinely believe, and no one can convince me otherwise, he helped unlock Connor Garland's full potential as a 20-goal scorer because they paired those two. And Halsey has a very good pass, a very good setup mind, and I think him and Garland connected for more than enough goals that I think he elevated Garland. But I also am not going to try to argue against what you're saying for the rest of the team. But because Garland's a favorite player and unlocked his potential, I think it's probably one of the reasons why I'm biased and I liked Halsey's addition so much was because I loved that pairing. I love that pairing like more than like a lot of other pairings we've had because that was Connor Garland's like breakout year and they paired them together. I think throughout the majority of the time when Halsey was here.
Yeah. All right, so let me throw out some trades here, or throw out the trade here. All right. So it's Taylor Hall and Blake Spears for Nick Merkley, Nate Schnarr, Kevin Ball, and that 2020 first round pick by the little name of Dawson Mercer. Dawson Mercer would have been an Arizona Coyote. Just to give a little example here, a rookie who isn't talked about all that much in in New Jersey. In 78 games played, he has 41 points, 16 of them goals, 25 assists as a rookie.
I would not care about what you just told me right now if they would have re-signed Hall and they would have kept Hall and Garland together. And then it still changed the coach because you know my feelings on Rick Tocchet.
Yep. You and I have similar feelings. I did not like Tocchet after season 2. I went, no.
Draft picks, I will agree, real quick, just to try to stay calm. They are anomalies. You know, you don't want to have your entire future be just first round picks because you still have to hit on them, and even if you hit on them, you still have to develop them properly. injuries. Barrett Hayden, it has affected him. Obviously, I still like the player, but you're not going to get that 5th overall pedigree because of, in part, that. I think also in part trying to rush him a bit, him not being right for Tocchet's system. We can go on and on, but it is a bit of an illusion with draft picks.
Yeah.
You still don't throw around first-round picks like they're candy. Because let's just say, for example, we kept the pick. It stays the exact same, right, whatever, and we don't pick up Mercer. You said it was a 2020 draft, right? I want to just take a real quick
2020 draft. And remember, this is the year when everything kind of fell apart. There was a shutdown, and then there was a bubble. The Coyotes had to play into the bubble. They were out of it because they choked that badly. Remember, at the time, this pick wasn't terrible. They were first in the Pacific Division. They were first. And it wasn't just we squeaked up to the first, let's get something to stay there. They were in first for like 3 weeks, okay? So this team wasn't bad. It was playing all right. They were playing all right. And this was the, all right, let's commit and go for it trade.
All right.
The problem is, you can trade all the assets that you've looked at you want. I don't disagree with moving assets that you've already drafted. This is why you don't trade away assets that have not been drafted yet.
All right, so here, and I'm also going to be considering trading down to get more assets, right? So we could have had Dawson Mercer. Here are a couple other solid young players that haven't quite, reached the NHL, haven't quite hit whatever, but they would still, at the very least, help Tucson. All right? So let's go ahead and just go over a couple little names. So you have Hendrix Leperrier, not bad. Connor Zary at 24. Justin Barron. A little guy named Jake Neighbors, for the St. Louis Blues. One of the things that I wouldn't have minded if they would have traded Chychrun there. Getting Jake Neighbors. Jakob Pro, not bad. A couple decent younger players that you could have traded back if you really, really felt the need, right? So you still, even if they wouldn't have got Mercer, would have had something to show for it. Blake Spears is not Mercer. Blake Spears is not even Leperrier. Blake Spears is not even Jacob Perreault or Jake Neighbors. Blake Spears is nothing. I don't even dislike Blake Spears, but he's mostly been hurt. Sucks so bad he wasn't in the lineup. He's never going to make the NHL. And I remember with the hockey, I was like, Taylor Hall's gone, but sometimes it's that additional asset you don't think about that ends up being, value for you. Yeah, Blake Spears ain't it. He ain't it. And I don't even dislike the guy. But he's not it. So the fact that you still, even if for whatever reason you look at Dawson Mercer and you're like, F that guy, still have some solid, decent, younger players that could be in Tucson right now developing, and you could have traded back and had an extra asset or two. All I'm saying is the stupid mismanagement because, again, if they re-sign Hall, and they keep that roster competitive and they're still making the playoffs, let's say they made the playoffs last year, they're still in the playoff hunt this year, then it's fine. We don't care about losing Dawson Mercer. We don't care about this. But when those trades don't hit, and then you have to blow it up and lose stuff for nothing like Taylor Hall, it shows how short-sighted it was. I was so excited to get Halsey. But the fact that they chose not to try to keep him, even just to try to trade him at the next deadline or something like that, which you can argue the ethics on that. Sure, whatever. I think all's fair in trying to un-F your franchise when you mess it up, right? I think it's all fair in that. The fact that they didn't even try any of that. You could also argue Halsey looked at this roster and said, I'm not staying here. Also within his right. Also a valid counterpoint. But if you would have just kept that. Ball is not looking bad. Schnarr's kind of gone off. Kind of not really doing a whole lot. And then Mercury, I think, got traded to San Jose because he wasn't doing much. Also,
and then I think he got traded again.
Again?
I think so. Unless that was the other Mercury there. They have two Mercurys, but one of them got traded away. I'm pretty sure.
And they're not related, apparently. I was so excited to have two
they
Mercurys.
The crazy part is they look really similar. I thought they were brothers. They're both similar complexions and face structures. I was like, they must be brothers. Nope. No correlation.
But just, this hurts teams. Every team makes these mistakes, but when Like, people wonder why the Coyotes don't have long-term success and why... I know Urinating Tree said this about the Cardinals, but it also fits with the Coyotes. No one is excited when the team's good. They're surprised and just kind of waiting for them to go back into the basement because it only every now and again you'll get good for a year or two. That's why. Because even though all three of those prospects I just listed, I do not care about losing. Mercury's injury prone, Ball's just a pretty solid size guy, and Schnarr, kind of just pittered out. He might end up being something, but I don't see it personally. You still could have had assets to move into other trades, turn into other draft picks, and really control where you want to bring the franchise. You can't tell me Schnarr didn't have value. He was part of the Hall trade. You can't tell me that Mercury didn't still have value. Even if you're getting third, fourth round picks, that's extra assets you can use for other trades or bring in other young players that you think might fit your mold better. But they lost it and didn't even keep Hall!
Yep. This is why it is very scary to go for it. You have to be confident that your team is a good team to go for it. And this team had never been to the playoffs. This team had, I shouldn't say had never, but this group had never been to the playoffs, aside from like Ekman Larson, who he was a kid when he was in the playoffs. Like, this team was not ready to go for it all. I'm sorry, but that is the truth. You don't make a trade like a Taylor Hall. Once again, I agree with you. Played pretty okay for us. He wasn't terrible. But you don't make those trades until you've made it to the playoffs a couple of times. Look at a perfect example of this is actually Colorado. The first year that they made it back to the playoffs, were they picking up every asset at the deadline to solidify their chances of going deep? No. They wanted to, Sackett wanted to feel it out and say, all right, what is this team? Are they a deep playoff contender, or are they just a really good, season team? Like, what are they? Before he started wasting assets on that, and you can't make that trade. And after hearing what was going on with Chaika in the background, like the noise in the background, it made more sense of why he did that, because he had no interest of being here. He was like, all right, I'm going to just leave after this season, so I'm just going to do whatever. Like, all the hard work that I put into this organization, I'm just going to nuke it at the last second. It's like, why? And it wasn't just him costing us Mercer either. Remember, he illegally tested players, which also led to us losing Cole Sillinger. If you look at how Cole Sillinger's playing, pretty good. Could you imagine this team with Dawson Mercer, Cole Sillinger, and then on top of that also having Gunther in the background?
Hell, that pick would have been higher because they wouldn't have traded for Hall. And let's just say they would have had a little more, a similar drop-off, then the pick could have been a little higher. Even if it's only slightly.
Yeah.
If I pull back up that 2020 draft, I'm just going to look at 2 slots higher than Mercer, just to show how much of a difference a couple of slots really could make. So Dawson Mercer, you could have been up, let's say around 15, 16, 17, and you could have grabbed Mercer or traded down to still grab Mercer and have an extra asset of any of these nice younger players, to put it into context. Or try to trade up.
Can you tell me who's at 12?
At 12?
Who's at 12?
A little Anton Lundell, which if you're at 18, it's realistic to be able to package an asset and go up.
Yeah, who's at 13?
Seth Jarvis?
Yeah.
Solid young player. It's because obviously Amarov and Goulet so far aren't exactly you're not looking at a household name. You're not looking at a Cole Caulfield miss, but a couple of slots, it makes the pick more valuable, and you can then flip it if someone doesn't like what they see.
Even at 14, Dylan Holloway. Let's just say you don't have the hindsight to pick a Mercer. Mm-hmm. Dylan Holloway's still pretty good. Yeah.
It's mismanagement because at the time I was so excited because I saw what this team could be, but here's the problem. I saw what they can be in spite of Rick Tocchet, and I was focusing on that. But they were still in Tocchett's system no matter what. you can only be so successful for so long. Why do you think they only produced a total of, I think it was 3 20-goal scorers in the 4 seasons that Tocchet was coach? Yeah, there was injuries, sure, whatever. You can't tell me that a good coach leads to a team that can't produce at least 2 20-goal scorers a season. Like, you cannot convince me. It was Connor Garland, Clayton Keller, and Phil Kessel.
Look at Tournier. Look at what he's done. We have
3,
10
right?
people.
3 or 4?
We 3, I think.
Kells,
I think it's
Schmaltzy, Krauser. I thought there was one. I'll double check. Say what you were saying, and I'll just double check and see if we got a third one.
I mean, just to show how good coaches coach. Look at what Tournier is doing with a roster that is almost all AHL players. I'm pretty sure at this point there's more AHL players or young kids than there is NHLers. Like, this team has been riddled by injuries coming down the end of this, and they still were able to compete with the Washington Capitals, and they're still able to compete with the St. Louis Blues. Yeah, they got blown out previously, and yeah, they got blown out at the beginning. There's a lot to that, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, to compete with those teams, that's pretty impressive, and especially with all the injuries that they have now.
It's a compliment to the deep drafting. It's a compliment to how they're developing the young players they do have. It's a compliment to Tournier's system.
Yep.
Turning it around the way they are, and yeah, they're losing. Who effing cares? I don't. This season was never about winning. All right, my expectations were I didn't think they were going to be the worst team in the Central because I saw other teams having significant weaknesses, and a lot of the times, look at what happened with the Misfits in Vegas. When you get guys that are thrown away for nothing, things can happen. I didn't expect, like, my absolute cap was a second wild card spot. That was the max if everything went perfectly. But I expected them to not be the worst team in the league, not the worst team in their division, and they ended up not reaching that, which everyone else was right on that. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. I'm an optimist. But this season is about development, what we're looking like in the future, how we're building, and the strides they've made, the young kids that no one would have ever thought were going to be consistent NHLers, the young kids that no one would have thought would have been even like middling NHLers, Jan Yannick, some Coyotes fans have given up on. I remember you had a couple of reservations. Richard did not give up on him, but he had some reservations, mainly because of how other players have developed. Seeing Hayden adjust his two-way game, seeing Boko Mama come in and be a solid young power forward, seeing Yanis Moser steal an NHL job in his rookie season. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the young kids, how they're progressing, and what the core is going to be. Because I'll say it right now, I don't care if they trade Jan Yannick. I don't care if they trade, not Moser. Moser's untouchable for me. But other young players that are playing well. I don't care if you trade them for other assets moving forward because they've increased their value. And then you can use that to plug what holes you have. So it's like, that's what I'm looking for, and they have made strides in that regard. And even though it hurts, it sucks, it's draining that Chick, Keller are out, and the team is just riddled with injuries, season-ending injuries. Fisher's out. I don't like him, but I know other people are high on him. Krauser's out. A couple other guys.
I like Fish as a human. Mm-hmm. I don't like him as a player.
Yeah, he's a very entertaining human being, a very good guy, and nothing bad to say about him as a person. And it's you still find something to look forward to, find something to look at, and with how they've managed the assets, how this draft could go. Let's put this into context, and this is not hyperbole. This is realistic with how deep this draft is with their first and second round assets. They could essentially draft their own brand new first line, a top pairing defenseman, and another top goalie prospect. Realistically. Not even a stretch. It's a possibility. There is so much to be excited for. And it's that's what you're looking for in a season like this, where you're at, what you might want to move around, how you might want to reposition. And now that I've filibustered for long enough, what do you got?
I got that we have been on Coyotes for 1 hour and 18 minutes, and I think that we need to draw this section to a close, or else we're going to keep going for another 3 more hours.
All right, that's gonna do it for us. I'm just gonna get out of here. It's hot. I want to go watch the Suns and deal with Mason. Richard wants to go, not have to think about my lovely voice for the next 16 hours because you gotta pack.
I gotta pack. I'm going camping. I'm going camping for 4 days, so I gotta pack up my bag.
It's gonna be in the wilderness, just lost and cold. And if we don't show up next week, Richard didn't die. He just decided he was done with me. That's it. He just decided he was done with the podcast.
I decided that I'm going to become a caveman, and I'm just going to live off the land.
All right. That's going to do it for me. You guys have a good one.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to give us a like and a follow, subscription on whatever platform you listen to us on or watching us on. We are a small channel here, and we could always use the, the scribbles, those things. Yeah, those things. Anyways, I don't know what I'm going on with here. Thank you so much for watching, and go Suns and Rattlers.